Oh, no! We suck again!
What's up, Nole Nation? Another week, another FSU loss. Florida State falls to 0-3 with a 20-12 loss at home to Memphis. It's just, Michael, it's getting worse, man. It's getting worse week by week by week. This team looks terrible. Thank you for tuning in, Nole Nation. I mean, I'm sure you guys are on the edge like us. Right now, Michael, I think right now I just need to make me a little post-game drink here. So let me get my...
Yeah. Don't do it. Don't drink the bleach.
let me get my bleach out over here, because that's kind of what I feel like right now, because it is just, man, it is unfathomable how bad this program has fallen off in a matter of months. And there's so many things to just be said about this team, but at the same time, there's nothing to say at this point. Like, correct. You have progressively gotten worse every single week. And this was, again, man, I understand Memphis was a good team and credit to them, but I don't even think Memphis played that well. I don't think Memphis is a great team. Credit to them for winning, but we look worse and worse every single week. And it is pitiful. I mean, first off, like, you are in year 5 under this coaching staff, and you just scored less points at home against Memphis than Troy did in a full-on rebuild. They are 129th in returning production, had their starting center out, their starting running back out for the first half, their starting quarterback went out in the second quarter, and they managed to put up more points than Florida State did on Memphis on the road than you did at home. This is just another embarrassment for this program. I mean, you had fans in the stands with "We're cooked" necklaces on and clown hats, and you had people with bags over their heads, and I mean, it's just, man, it's an embarrassing day to be a Florida State fan right now. And I think really right now you look at it like this was them coming out against a G5 team off the bye week at home. And I tweeted this right before kickoff, about 30 minutes before kickoff. I said, look, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt this one time. And if they don't show it in this week, this is the opportunity to get yourself off the mat. Man, if they didn't do it today, I don't know that I think this team is going to win a game this season. And really right now, I think Charleston Southern is probably your only win on the schedule. And that's probably up in the air right now. So, man, it's just another terrible showing by Florida State. And when I look at the schedule, man, I don't know that I see more than one win.
Yeah, man. Listen, it kind of feels like this. This is what it kind of feels like for Florida State. And then, just to add to the thing, let me just go ahead and just add this. Let's go ahead and add this. I mean, this is just terrible. I mean, this is what it looks like. I mean, this is what all the fans and everybody else is living at. I mean, it's just absolutely.
I'm gonna drink some bleach with you there.
Yeah. Oh, I had it on the wrong side. Let me put it on the right side. There we go. That's what it is. Oh
man,
that's my prediction. I mean, it's just
this. Honestly, dude, like this feels legitimately worse than Willie Taggart era.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because at least in the Willie Taggart era, you knew there were at least a couple wins. You're like, okay, we see the wins there. But this feels hopeless and worse because how did we go from 23-4 the last 2 years to this trash fire? How did we get from being one of the back to elite status in the country, being, literally a committee vote away from being in the playoff, to literally 0-3, getting whooped by Boston College, getting beat by Georgia Tech and Ireland, and getting basically handled most of the game?
Yeah.
I mean, Memphis scored first, and they never trailed the whole game. At one point, it was 20 to 3.
Yeah.
And
I tweeted out, I thought we were going to get blown out at home by Memphis.
Same did I. I mean, it's just ridiculous that this is where we are after all of that. In year 5, Jesse, did you know that Florida State has only been 0-3, has only started the season 0-3 4 times, and 2 of them have been under Mike Norvell. One of them was Bobby Bowden's first year, and one of them was way back when no one really cared, right? Like 2 times under Mike Norvell have we started 0-3 in 5 years. How are we at this place again, man?
Yeah, and the thing, I think when you say like there's not a lot of hope, I think it's because like first off, shout out to Ryan Fitzgerald. Like, you're doing your thing.
He's
Alex
the only
Mascalano,
hope.
you're doing your thing. You're safe from this show. You're fine. I think the problem is, like, every aspect of this team, literally every aspect of this team is an abject failure, without a doubt. And I understand, like, the onus, a lot of the blame gets put on DJ. And don't get me wrong, like, he sucks. There is no doubt about it. But everybody sucks. Like, the offensive line is probably the most disappointing part of this team. You ran for 21 yards against Boston College. Then you come back against a G5 team that we told you in a preview, like, this defensive line is not legitimately elite or anything by that means. And you ran for 37 yards on 24 attempts, 1.5 yards per attempt. That is embarrassing. You haven't cracked 100 yards in 2 games combined. And so, like, the offensive line is a failure. The wide receivers can't catch they can't catch a cold standing butt naked in the Arctic
everywhere.
Like, right, like, they just can't catch. And I mean, granted, Kyle Morlock had a better game today, but no one else can catch. Like, even Malik Benson, a guy, and he had one nice play, which was almost seemed kind of like a busted coverage. But even the guy that we thought was going to be a game changer for Florida State just is not. Hakeem Williams came back today, thought that might be something, turned out to be.
He still looks injured. He still looks like he's running gingerly.
Right, and turned out to be nothing. And so, like, man, there's just, I don't know that you see a path for this to get any better other than really just full on going youth movement. And again, like I said, man, DJ is terrible. And I think from a multiple perspective, like, first off, he had a couple of nice plays. Fine. If you want to look at that, like, congratulations, you had one good drive this season. But he takes too many sacks. He's very inaccurate. And he's just not good, man. And I understand that, like, again, for the 100th time, I don't think Brock Glenn is going to come in and light the world on fire from a quarterback perspective, but he can't be any worse. And I think this team I don't think this team's playing hard for DJ. I really don't. I don't think they believe in him as well. And when you look up front at the offensive line, DJ's not getting any help from that offensive line by any means. Like, first off, we can't run the ball, so they just load the box. And really, until they started airing it out later in the game, it was like, man, I even tweeted out, like, we literally have 2 plays. Like, we run a screen or a 3-yard pass, and we run into a loaded box. That's literally all we can do. And, like, teams do not respect your pass in any way, shape, or form. And that also falls on the receivers. That falls on the offensive line because you can't run the ball. And that falls on DJ. And the thing for me is, like, Alex Atkins coming back on Saturday when he's allowed to coach Monday through Friday isn't going to fix this. That is not the answer. We thought maybe initially, like, okay, you get Atkins back, we'll see how it goes. That's not going to fix this. Now, granted, he's your offensive coordinator. Maybe he looks at some different things. It's not going to fix this, man. And like, I am in the position where I feel like I want to go scorched earth. I think at this point, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily call for Mike Norvell to be fired because, honestly, right now with this buyout, I just don't think they're going to be in a position to do that with the new contract and everything. I think in order to save his job, he has to go scorched earth this offseason. I think that entire offensive staff, gone. You got to get rid of them. I think the defensive staff, you got Surtain, and that's it. I think everybody else can go if Surtain even wants to hang around after that. I think your off the field staff from the recruiting and the things that you've heard that have come out, some of the rumors that have been come out about the way they handled the transfer portal and stuff in the offseason, I think they all have to go because I think if you don't, I mean, Mike Norvell's his seat is heating up.
Yeah, I agree. I think his seat is heating up. Listen, when you look at this game, just specifically this game, let me go back for a second. Just some of the indictments on your program. Okay. Some of the indictments on your program. You got a quarterback who missed wide open throws. There were 3 or 4 throws that I saw that the broadcast, Louis Riddick, who's former, NFL GM and talks to the scouts, all like that. He's calling out your quarterback because he's missing wide open throws. There's one throw where he rolls out and Benson's sitting right there on a 10-yard dig route, and he decides to throw it into double coverage on the sidelines there. I mean, you got that. You got your quarterback checking out of pass plays into run plays when he sees 8 or 9 in the box. They're still running the ball. Like, why are we checking into these plays? Why on 3rd and 10 are we checking into a run play? Why on 3rd and 10 are we checking into a run play? Then when we're running these wide receiver screens or we're throwing east and west, sideline, you got wide receivers who phantom block. There was one play where DJ threw it right to on the field side. He threw it to Benson, and the Ja'Kai Douglas was supposed to block the guy, and he kind of actually pats the guy on the back as he walks by and almost intercepts the ball and gets it's to Jaylen Brown. I'm sorry, and Jaylen Brown gets injured on the play. I mean, there were blocking problems all over the place. Yes, Roydell Williams fumbled the second play of the game for sure. He got hit. That's a struggle. But then you didn't see Toafili a lot, man. I mean, this guy's your kind of switch army knife, and you're still not leveraging him very well much anymore, right? You get Keziah Holmes on 3rd and 1. I mean, it's 3rd and freaking 1. 3rd and 1. It's 4th and 1. And you get stopped in the backfield because your offensive linemen can't block. They're letting guys run free back there. Robert Scott's in the game for who knows what reason. So many times Memphis put the linebackers in conflict again, and so many times they got beat. I mean, that 4th and 1 conversion where Florida State was trying to get the ball back after they jumped off sides, and now Memphis went for it. I mean, again, you got DJ Lundy, a slow run linebacker on a running back. I mean, just over and over again. Conrad Hussey gives up a play. If he turns his head around, it's probably an interception, but instead it's a 40-yard catch. I mean, just over and over again, you see these indictments. Then you have all the news come out about the rumors, and I'm just saying the rumors, and we don't know if they're true or not. Right. But this is what's been reported that that's people on the staff, on the support staff, general managers, they've mishandled the NIL distribution, the recruiting setbacks, you overpaid for basically second choice players that nobody else wanted. Alabama was fine getting rid of these players, and we paid way too much on it. You got a $2 million defensive line that on one play I just showed you right before we jumped on here where Patrick Payton, where it was a deep ball that Hussey gave, or that Frencho Cypress gave up, where Patrick Payton literally goes off, gets to the left tackle pushes him one time, and Pat Payton just stops. I mean, that's our $2 million defensive line. This is an indictment on your program, Mike Norvell. You have got to clean house. This is a all systems failure. You have to reset the program. No one outside of Patrick Surtain and maybe David Johnson should survive this.
Yeah, and honestly, that goes for your roster too. Like, I think there's some guys at the end of the season that you should run off because they're just not worth the NIL money. They're not worth keeping around. I don't want to say they're bad for the locker room, but they're not giving full effort on every play. Nope. But again, man, it's just like this team can't even do the little things right. Like the communication, you had a bye week to work on your communication. It was still terrible on the defensive side of things. You were being called out on the broadcast the entire time. We can't even catch a screen pass. I mean, that one to Keziah Holmes was probably maybe even a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then you end up dropping the ball and having to punt. And so, like, man, it's just every aspect of this team is an embarrassment, really, right now. It really is. And so, like, the problem is I don't know how it gets any better because you literally can't explain this. I mean, this offensive line is the worst that I have seen. Like, we talked about it in one of the previous episodes where we said we asked the tough questions, and by all means go back and watch that, where like none of Alex Atkins' high school recruits have panned out yet. And like, if this is the best that you can put on the field in 5 years, then we need to find someone who can put something better on the field because this ain't it. I mean, this ain't cutting it. Correct. Again, like if you don't trust DJ to throw the ball, why the hell is he on the field? Give me someone that you trust to throw the ball. Now, I know a lot of people talk about the debate between Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek. Look, guys, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I think Luke Kromenhoek is the future of this program. I think he's the best passer in that quarterback room. I don't trust putting him behind that offensive line right now because I don't want him to get hurt. I think that alone could stunt his development like we saw with Brock Glenn last year. But I think at some point, you talked about on the broadcast, even Dan Mullen at halftime was like, man, I think you got to make a change.
Yes.
And it's not even that, like, they say that everybody loves the backup until he comes in and doesn't do good. The thing is, like he even pointed out, and again, this is a head coach from a former Power 5 program. And he's even saying that, like, it's not even so much about what he comes in and does on the field. It's about, you got to, man, just the emotional standpoint. Like, when your quarterback is struggling this bad, you have to give somebody else a look. And, again, with DJ, like 16 to 31, 52% completion percentage. I mean, again, man, now granted, I'd like to know, I'm waiting on the PFF numbers to come out because I'd like to know how many of those are drops. And I know, again, man, like it's so easy to just fry up DJ for everything that he does, but he's just not good, man. The thing is, like, when you have a not good team and you put a not good quarterback in charge of that team, it's not going to get any better. And if you're not
Right.
changing anything, how is it supposed to get better? But at the same time, like, DJ being a bad quarterback does not excuse the receivers dropping balls that hit them in the hands. Like, you
Right.
can't win contested catches. You can't catch wide open catches. Like, air can get a PBU against you. You know what I mean? Like, a tall blade of grass gets a PBU against one of these receivers, and
That's
it's just terrible, man. And like, I'm just tired of hearing this, like, don't be a fan later, stay over there or whatever. Like, man, y'all are terrible, dude. Like, you stay in the locker room and let somebody else come out and play, because this team is terrible. It's poorly coached.
Yep.
And in this one, we saw a lot of mistakes. Like, man, you went punt safe at the end of the game just to try and get the ball back to give yourself a chance at a comeback. And you get a freaking penalty on that. Now, granted, they ended up not converting the field goal, but you wasted a whole lot of clock.
Correct.
I mean, and then you have the freaking play where, like, your own player gets blocked into the punt returner, and you end up fumbling the ball and letting Memphis go down. Of course, now you did a good job of holding them for only 3, but that was mostly on them screwing up more than anything. But, I think really what disappoints me more than anything of this is, like, in the first half, the defense actually played pretty daggone good. Like, had you not have given up that stupid fumble on the punt, it'd have been 10-3 at half. You held them to 10 points in the first half. You actually held them to -1 rushing yards in the first half after giving up over 200 yards in the last 2 games. So, like, they played well, but at some point, man, like, we talk about the offense can't score. You can't get first downs, let alone score. So eventually this defense, they just get gassed every single game because,
Right.
we talked about last year about how this team, they rotated very heavily. They stayed fresh late in games. They don't have the depth to do that this year. They play a lot of guys, a lot of snaps. And Lord knows, I thought we were going to have to start putting in the water boy linebacker because we were running out of bodies when everybody started getting hurt.
Right.
And so, like, if you don't have the effective depth that you had last year and your offense cannot sustain any kind of drives at all, those guys are just going to get gassed. So, like,
that's right.
I think the shame is you wasted an actual decent defensive performance today. I mean, there's only so much they can do when they're on the field the whole time.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, the defense actually, outside of some definitely miscommunications that have been
right.
common,
They weren't perfect. They made mistakes.
They weren't perfect. They made mistakes, but yet they allowed you to stay in the game. I mean, Memphis got up 20-3. 20-3. You had chances to get back in this game, and you wasted it because your offense is absolutely hot garbage. You cannot move the ball. You cannot get into the right place. No one's afraid of your run game. No one's afraid of your wide receivers. I mean, at one point in the fourth quarter, Jesse, if I recall correctly, Memphis sent a 0 coverage blitz 4 out of the 5 times, especially that last play, that last drive where it was sack, incompletion, sack. They went 0 coverage, which means there was no safety in the middle of the field, no safety anywhere. They put our wide receivers on one-on-one coverage, and they sent the house, and they got to DJ every time, with the exception for one incomplete pass. They don't respect our offense. They don't respect our wide receivers. They don't respect the run game, and they definitely do not respect the quarterback. You are going to lose every single game this season. I'm just putting it out there right now, including the Charleston Southern game, because no one is going to respect your offense at all, Mike Norvell. And this is on you. The offense is on you. You can't blame anybody else. You can blame Adam Fuller about the defense. You can blame John Pabuchis about special teams, but that's the only thing that's working right now. So you really can't blame him. You can't blame anybody but yourself on this offense. And I'm a Mike Norvell fan. I think he's one of the best play callers in the country. But am I starting to feel like, oh, well, maybe it was Jordan Travis that made him look so good?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think you almost get into that, like, Jameis Jimbo conversation now. Like, who is Jimbo Fisher without Jameis Winston? And I think you could honestly ask that question now. Who is Mike Norvell? Now, granted, he had success at Memphis, but, like, who is he without Jordan Travis? Because, again, like you said, man, he's the one that ultimately, it's his program. He's the one that ultimately chose to bring in a bad quarterback. Now, granted, DJ to be honest, man, he didn't play this bad at Oregon State or Clemson, really. Now, he wasn't good, but he didn't play this bad. And then, like, you are in charge of the offensive line, hiring the coach and all this stuff, and some of the guys that you brought in. You're in charge of the play calling. And again, you are in year 5, and you have scored 21, 13, and 12 points. And mind you, all three of now, granted, this is a new season with a lot of new staffs, every new defense, or every defense you face this year had a new defensive coordinator. All of these defense that you faced this year were cheeks last year. They were terrible, and you have sucked against every one of them. Like we were talking about it earlier, man. You might get sacked 50 times against Clemson. You might as well just punt on first down, because that defensive line is going to eat your offensive line for lunch. And, you just look at, like we talked about some of the offensive numbers. You look at some of the defense numbers. They had 12 tackles for loss in this game, the most since 2019 for Memphis. They had 5 PBUs against you. They had 5 quarterback hurries, 4 sacks. I mean, you lost 33 yards in sack yards. What do you even say? Like, what do you say other than this entire season, this entire team, and right now this program is basically a national embarrassment. You know what I mean?
Well,
like they said this was, I think, the first top 10 team to go 0-3 since 2020. And like, look, man, again, like the bye week maybe made me feel a little less negative. The last post game I did was pretty bad. It was 3 a.m. Man, I was so freaking mad when I watched this game because I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of defending this team. I'm tired of watching this BS on the field every freaking Saturday. Like, it's not getting any better. And I think that's the problem. It's worse. Like, I've seen some of the comments under Mike Norvell's post-game conference or whatever, which, by the way, how ironic, the fire alarm goes off at the end of his conference. So, like,
the house is on fire.
The house is on fire, man. But that's the thing. Like, at this point, man, I know he's talking about everybody's accountable and all this type of stuff. Everything has to be evaluated. I really don't care what he has to say. I just don't, man, because it's all coach speak. You are getting worse week over week over week. And right now, frankly, man, I have to say that, like, there's a snowball's chance in hell you're going to beat Cal next week. And then you got to go to SMU that just made a quarterback change. Then you got Clemson. You're probably going to go into that bye week after Clemson 1-5 and 0-6. And at what point do you think they lose the locker room if they haven't lost it already? Now, I know you saw some things like Juice Cryer came out after. By the way, congrats on the pick, man. Good play there.
That was a good play.
But he said that, like, we're gonna rally and keep trying to fix this thing. But man, I worry with some of these guys. The effort is just not there, and so you wonder if they've lost this locker room. And I'll tell you, man, I tweeted it out during the game. Like, if you trot DJU out there again after he threw that pick, that you're going to lose the fan base. And right now, I think they have zero support. I mean, we joke about it. I know it was kind of last minute, man. I literally tried to give my Memphis tickets away, and I couldn't find anybody to take them. I think everybody is just checked out on this because, one, it looks terrible, and two, you refuse to make any changes. You just keep, and let me just say this one last thing. Michael, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And so, like, I'm not saying that DJU is the sole problem, right? I'm not saying that, because here's the thing. Like, you have a lot of bad things that when you combine them, it becomes one terrible thing, one giant terrible thing, a lot of little things. How come we can't at least see what Elijah Moore has? How come we can't see what you can put LaWayne McCoy out there as the punt returner, but you can't put him at receiver? You can't even give Brock Glenn one drive, one series. Now, I know you also lost Darius Washington on the offensive line, but hey, he sucked last week, so I don't know how much of a net loss that was. Robert Scott still ain't it. So, like, Byers is still out. So, man, I don't know. Your offensive line's terrible when you keep running the ball up the middle. Like, Cam Davis had a good game, I feel like. He's for a freshman, I think he was okay. But, man, there's just really, outside of Ryan Fitzgerald, there's nothing about this team that makes you feel positive, and there's nothing that's getting better week over week.
Yeah, I just don't know what I don't know what you do, because I think when you look at especially when you look at that offensive line, I mean, they keep rotating offensive linemen. Like, do they, like, obviously they don't listen to the fans, so I get that, but, like, it's not working. Why can't we find
maybe they should?
5? Yeah, why can't we just find 5 guys and just say we're sticking with these 5 guys unless somebody gets injured? Why can't we do that, right? The fact of the matter is, on that last play, on that last Hail Mary, when Malik Benson was down on the field, after the ball got batted down, he laid down and a bunch of players and I think a staff person ran over and they picked him up. He wasn't injured, but I saw it and I made a mental note of it. He swatted their hands away. He didn't want them to talk to him. He didn't want to. And I get it. It's at the end of the game. You're upset. I like that stuff. I'm not saying that he's like, done with the team. But man, if there was a picture of being done with the team, that was it right there. And here's the thing. Again, I'm going back to this point. How did we get here? There is something else going on, Jesse. Obviously, we don't cover practice. We don't have credentials. We don't know what's happening, but there is something else going on. You don't go from 13-1. And yes, you lost 10 NFL players. Yes, you lost some transfers, but on paper, the talent alone, what you brought in, the development that you've shown over the last 4 years, this team should have been at worst a 9-3 team, an 8-4 team. You should be playing right now. You're playing like an 0-12 team. Yeah. You're playing like you're not even trying to win a game. You're playing like you don't give a darn about what happens this season. I mean, what is going on? Mike Norvell has an $80 million buyout. Like, what is happening here? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, not buyout, $80 million extension. Man, you should be playing with your hair on fire, right? If you didn't want to be here, you should have went to Alabama, but you wanted to be here. Why does the product look like this?
And I think it's fair. When you collect that kind of money, you're open to criticism, and something within this program is broken. And what it is, I don't know. Is it the NIL problems? Is it guys that are like, hey, look, this check already got cashed, so it doesn't make a difference whether we go 12-0 or 0-12. But man, it's almost like there's just no pride in playing for the name on the front of your jersey. Yep. It only matters in playing in the name on the back of your jersey. But at the same time, like, I don't know if they just got, and I touched on this last time, I don't know if they just got lazy in their evals because they saw guys' names or guys that there was I know, and goodness gracious, at this point, I would almost take Jimbo Fisher back because at least he could get some dudes on this roster. But, there was always a belief that like Jimbo just would see the star ratings and go recruit guys. And it almost feels like this offseason that they just saw like, oh, this guy come from Alabama. Oh, this guy come from Georgia. He'll be fine. Like, how do you miss on so many people? Are they all that bad? Because, like, look, man, again, for the second game in a row, I'm going to say it. Like, the guy's dad is a freaking legend around here. So this is no indictment on him, and I'm sure he's a great kid. Marvin Jones Jr. is, one, he's completely ineffective in this game. And two, he just gives piss poor effort, man. It is absolutely terrible. And so, like, something is broken in this program. And for some reason, Mike Norvell is not able to get the most out of his players. And that's not something that we've seen in the past. Man, like you think about back to the 2022 even, or even 2021. I know they started 0-4, but like they finished, 5-3 or something like that.
5-3. And then they were in every game except for, I think, the Clemson game.
Right. And like you outside of a guy like Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas and maybe Jamie Robinson, like you did not have talent on that team, not like you do now anyway, at least on paper. And so for you to have, quote unquote, this much talent, the 13th most talented roster in the country, and you have just lost to, I think it was like 35th, 59th, and 72nd most talented roster, 2 of those games at home, one of those with a brand new coaching staff. Man, this is going to be a really, really long and painful season, as if it hasn't been bad enough already. But man, again, like I just don't see them winning another game this season. I mean, maybe Charleston Southern, and I think now, maybe. Like, we talked about this before. Like, I think at some point, we talk like we want youth movement, we want this, that, and the other. We want to start planning for next year because this season's an absolute wash. Like we said last week, maybe it's on life support. Well, guess they pulled the plug on you this week.
They pulled the plug.
Yeah, they pulled the plug on your hopes and dreams this week. And I thought maybe like if Mike Norvell switched during the bye week to the full-on youth movement, maybe it sent a bad message like, okay, I can't fix this. Let's just plan for next year. And maybe that sends a bad message. But now, I think at this point, you have to almost start going full youth movement. And here's the problem. Like, first off, you had some recruits that watched this today. So, like, one, you can probably count out those guys. And two, you can probably expect more decommitments coming because, I mean, let's be frank, man. Florida State right now is the laughingstock of college football. I was looking it up earlier. Like, this offense, if you don't adjust for this week, you're probably floating somewhere around the 121st worst offense in the country. And so, like, you're the laughing stock of college football. So, like, if you start losing these recruits, and Lord knows that the transfer portal opens at the end of the season, you better hope you can keep some of these young talented guys in here. Like, I think at some point it's time to start going youth movement, because if you have these young talented guys, right, and I think a lot of the transfers they just missed on this year. It is what it is, man. I think a lot of the older guys aren't playing that well. I do feel like some of these younger skill players are pretty good. I don't think Charles Lester is a bust or something like that. I think they're probably pretty good. But if they see this on the field and they're like, you're going to continue to play this over me when we're 0-3,
I'm out of here.
What's going to stop them from leaving? So I think at some point coming up, man, because I think after that Clemson bye week, you're going to be 1-5 or 0-6 if you sneak up and beat SMU. I think you got to make the switch at some point, man, because whatever you're doing is not working.
Yeah, if I'm one of those young players, and I know, like, I hear the coach in me because I coached. I hear it. If a player came up to me and demanded to play, I'd be like, all right, you ain't never seen the field. Yeah. But after this, in college football, when you got NIL and you can transfer freely, man, I'd be in that coach's office like, Coach Norvell, listen, man, I want to be for you, but if I'm before you, I got to go out there and try to like help to get this better. If you're not playing me because you have some loyalty to these guys, the season's over. We're not doing anything, right? So give us a chance, but tell me now if you're not, because I'll go ahead and continue to work and be a good team sport, but I'm out of here. After the season.
And think about how many programs are probably reaching out to some of your best recruits right now, saying, man, do you really want to be a part of this?
Families and their uncles, grandmas.
Exactly. And, we talk about the numbers, just continue to look at some. You were 2 of 12 on third down this week. 2 of 12. And I don't even know what the culmination of the whole season is, but it's probably not much better than that.
How about this? Florida State's defense has allowed, I think it's 8 of 9 or maybe 8 of 10. Yeah, I think it's 8 of 10 touchdowns in the red zone. Like, you get in the red zone, you have an 80% chance of scoring a touchdown right now against Florida State's defense. And the thing is, Florida State only gave up 65 yards worth of rushing, which is, the last two games, they were giving up over 200 plus. So they made improvements there. Seth Hennigan was going to throw more. We kind of figured that was going to happen because they didn't have that's
their identity.
Line. Yeah, that's their identity. And they gave up, Florida State only gave up one deep pass. Outside of that, it was just all these little short things that we weren't tackling on. So that, again, tackling, right? So in retrospect, outside of tackling and the one big throw that Florida State gave up, the defense played moderately well, and yet there was no hope. At some point, the defense is like, dude, we can keep trying and trying and trying, but if this offense is going to score, like, at some point we're going to get tired. Memphis took the opening third quarter drive and held it for almost 8 minutes. Almost 8 minutes.
Yeah. And, the thing is, too, like when we talked about before, where this team has to do better about getting themselves into third and short. And because they can't convert third and longs. On third and shorts this week, 1 to 4 yards, you're 0-4. So you couldn't convert one single third and short. Really, like, I'll say this, man, as much as people talk about the disappointment with DJU, and by all means, guys, I'm here with you. He's a disappointment. This offensive line and this run game is an equal or bigger disappointment. It is a unmitigated disaster that you cannot run the ball. You have run the ball for less than 50 yards 2 weeks in a row. It is flat out embarrassing that you cannot run the ball.
And it's not all to me, Jesse, and you. To me, from what I've watched, you can't pin this on the running backs because all they can do is get the ball and try to make a guy miss. It's hard to make 4 guys in your face miss, right? It's hard to do that. And then the other blame that should go on. So it's not just I don't put any of the run game on the running backs. I put it on three positions. Number 1, the quarterback, always checking into a bad run fit, always. Yeah. Number 2, on the offensive line. Actually, they're number 1. Let me go back. Number 1, offensive line, because you can't block a hill of beans, okay? Number 2, on the quarterback, because you're checking in. You check to a run at the worst possible time,
Yeah.
And then number 3 on the wide receivers, who are literally whiffing on every single block known to man. Last year, we didn't have that problem. Last year, you had Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. You had Johnny Wilson, who was a reject player from Arizona State, blocking his tail off because he understood that when you block well, you open up the offense well, which gives him more opportunities to get the ball well. Keon Coleman, who's playing for the Buffalo Bills right now, who was an NFL All-Star talented, over there busting his butt to block for you, even though he was injured. Jaheim Bell, when he was in the game, I mean, you had wide receivers blocking because they understood this was a part of it. This year, they're like, I'm not getting the ball enough.
Right, it's like an effort thing. It really, with the receivers, it's almost like an effort. Like, you got to want to go out there and block somebody. And I understand they're not 6'7" and all that type of stuff, but like, you got guys that just aren't trying hard enough to block. And this offensive line is just they are terrible. I mean, they really are. And that's the thing. Like we touched on, man, DJ, you might hold the ball too long or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I mean, every time, I would say 90% of the time that he drops back in the pocket, it's an immediate run for your life.
Correct.
Because they can't block anybody. And, Lord knows they can't do blitz pickup.
Nope.
And then the other team, again, like you said, man, they just stack the box with 6 to 8 guys and they blitz every play. I mean, we saw the same thing with Boston College. No deep safeties on long and goal or, long and conversion situations. They got no deep safeties because they don't respect your pass game.
They don't respect it.
Right. And even then, half the time, we just continue to run the ball straight into the teeth of the defense, knowing that your offensive line sucks. So, like, man, and again, like we said, I think the problem is Alex Atkins coming back on Saturdays when he's allowed to be there 6 days a week is not going to help, man. It's just not. Like, and it's so confusing because we've seen some of these guys play decently before. So, like, where is the disconnect? I just don't understand it. Like, you didn't see, I don't know, and maybe you'd know, but I don't know. I don't think, did Portier even have a catch today?
No, he did not.
I mean, nothing from him at all. Like, I don't see, I'm looking at the stat sheet right now. Literally nothing. I don't know if he even played.
I'm curious to see if he was even targeted. Was he in the game? Did he get targeted at all?
I don't see anything as far as I don't see even a single target to Portier. So your best receiver against Boston College didn't even get a target. And then we bring back Hakeem and you're like, okay, well, that might be something there. 5 targets, 5.3 yards per carry, 0 touchdowns,
3 catches,
16 yards. Like, that's.
But the thing is, I think Jesse, I mean, if you go back and watch the game, I will say this. I think Hakeem, if anything, the dude should give a little bit of kudos because he looks still really injured. He's running gingerly. There was one where they showed a replay and he was going on a go route and he looked like he was laboring to try to get up to speed. And so, I mean, the man just was like, look, I got to help my team. I'm going to come back. This is speculation. He looks still injured to me. So I don't know if I'm going to put a lot of this on him as a wide receiver, though there were a couple blocks he should have had that he just whiffed on. I will put that on him. I was about to say, I don't know that Toafili looks healthy either. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. I don't know how many times he was targeted. He had 4 carries for 30 yards at 7.5 a clip. He had, Jesse, 7.5 yards per carry, and he only gets 4 carries for 30 yards. He gets 1 catch for 6 yards. He had 5 touches, man. 5.
Yeah, and then you look at Roydell Williams, 5 attempts, 1.2 yards per carry, and a fumble on the second play of the game, and he gets more than Toafili. So, like, again, man, I think you just have to go back to, like, now that we've been ranting for a little bit, I think you have to go back and look at this and say, like, it's bad play and bad coaching, and it is what it is. And that's the hard part because we've always felt like this team, if nothing else, was well coached. But like, you have mismanagement from a personnel perspective, you have mismanagement from a play calling perspective, you have terrible players all around this field that aren't playing well together. On top of that, you have an offensive line that's a failure. You have receivers that can't catch. You have a quarterback who's very inaccurate and can't make anything happen with his feet. And then you combine all that, and this is legitimately probably the worst offense in college football. Like, no BS, man. At this point, let's just go triple option. Yeah, I mean, it would probably be better. It would probably be better than what you have right now because you can't do anything else. And so, like, The defense, I will at least give them a little bit of credit. Like, they actually showed some kind of fight. They showed some kind of improvement this week. They just got gassed late in the game against a freaking good Memphis offense. Like, we don't even know that Memphis defense is any good. Again, they get Troy with a backup quarterback because they only had 7 points when their quarterback went out. So Troy's backup quarterback put almost as many points as you did, and the kid was like a Gardner Webb transfer. So, like, it's just, man, this whole operation right now is an abject failure and an embarrassment for FSU fans. Yeah. And, again, man, like I talked about with not being able to get rid of those tickets, like, man, how many people do you think are going to keep showing up to these games? Because it's going to
Cal's going to look embarrassing next week.
Right. Like, the stadium is already half full, and now you've lost. You're 0-3. You're probably going to go 0-4. And it's just, man, it's so mind-boggling how you got here. And, I had talked to a commenter in one of our YouTube videos where I was like, man, I'm sorry that I was so negative in that last one after Boston College, because I said, like, look, I don't know that this team wins more than 2 games, and I still feel the same way. And I tried to be positive and give him the benefit of the doubt. And he's like, look, I came here because I didn't want anyone to try and explain this away. There is no way to explain this away. Like, I know we tried in the preview to try and be a little bit positive. Like, here's a way that this can get better. Yeah. Granted, there is a way that it can get better, because what did we say? You got to block, you got to catch, you got to communicate, you got to do these things. And guess what you did this week? None of it. And then again, man, like, how in the world you don't give another quarterback, whether he sucks or not? Look, if Brock Glenn isn't any good, let's find out. Right? Yeah. Let's just see. Because at least then, I think from a Mike Norvell perspective, at least you can come out and say, I gave him a look. Now I firmly believe the coach should not coach based on what the fans want. I get that.
Yep, I agree.
But at least if you do that, then you can at least be like, I hear you. I hear you booing. Yeah. Because I heard that we want Brock Chance again today.
Yeah. I heard him too.
At least then you can say, I tried. And look, it didn't work. But at what point is failure? It doesn't warrant change. And so what hope do you give us that it's going to get any better? Because again, man, when you look at the way the season's going to play out, and I think we can kind of go a little bit more bigger picture here now that we've talked about how terrible this game was and where you're going to end up going. I mean, you're probably going to end up 1-11, 2-10 at best, probably 0-12, maybe. On a pot, like maybe you beat SMU because they're struggling. They just made a quarterback change. That guy's going to be tough to defend. Maybe you can beat Duke. Maybe. I doubt it. That's on the road. Maybe Charleston Southern. So let's say you go from anywhere from 0-12 to 4-8. You're probably going to lose some more recruits. So the recruiting class is going to fall apart. And it's like, what success are you having to leave things like they are without making any kind of changes, without making any kind of attempt to make this get better? And I think that's the part that's so disappointing, because these fans that you keep making mad, and again, like, I get it, you can't coach based on what the fans want. These are the ones that are going to fund the Battle's End. These are the ones that are going to fund the boosters, that are going to help get the recruits that are going to fix this. So I think really at the end of the year, man, like, no offense to the guys that went 23-4. We appreciate what they did, getting this program away from that end of Jimbo, Willie Taggart 3-6 season. But you're right back there where you are now. So, like, you are a net negative now. You did nothing. Great, you won an ACC championship, but now you're 0-3 in the embarrassment of college football. So, like, to me, at the end of the season, man, you have got to make some wholesale changes. And I think we might have even been a little too timid on the last one, where we said, okay, you got this guy that might be safe, this guy that might be safe, this guy might be to be determined. Man, I think for Mike Norvell to save face, I think you got to wipe the slate clean. And I think even then his seat is warming up, because there is no excuse in year 5 that you're scoring 13 points on Boston College, 12 points on Memphis, and 21 points on Boston College or Georgia Tech in the very first game of the season under a new defensive coordinator. There's no excuse for it.
Yeah, absolutely no excuse. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think Florida State I think Mike Norvell has to clean house. I really do. Maybe with the exception of Patrick Surtain. I mean, he's probably the only one. I might say Derek Johnson, because, again, I don't put this on the running backs necessarily.
No, I think that's the only 2 that are safe.
Yeah, I think that's the only 2 that I think Surtain is definitely should be safe, and I think David Johnson should be safe with a talking to. Like, but I think, I'm sorry, Alex Atkins, bro. none of your recruits have panned out. Your offensive line has been getting worse. It's only one covered up by Jordan Travis again, somebody like that. Tony Tokraz. I mean, man, I just haven't seen any improvements in the quarterbacks this year. Sorry,
Right.
Chris Thompson, tight ends, I mean, more like had a better game, but outside of Landon Thomas, what have you really done? Right.
Right.
Ron Dugans. I mean, this has got to be the worst collection of wide receivers since the 2020 season. I mean, just the worst.
Yeah.
Maybe even 21 was as bad, but man, what is going on? I mean, and then you go to the defense. I mean, Adam Fuller, outside of the last 2 years when he had NFL level talent. And again, like you said before, if you have to have NFL level talent to have a decent defense, you need a better recruiter at defensive coordinator, right?
Right.
Obviously, Randy should have been gone 20, 80,000 years ago.
Yeah.
John Papuchis, man, great special teams coach, not a DE coach. And look, I love Odell, but it's time, man. He's not recruiting at the level he used to. He's not developing at the level he used to. We were fortunate enough to have some players that were great players that transferred in with Fabian Lovett, with Braden Fisk. But like outside of that, what has he really done? And so I think not only do you have to clean out the coaching staff and get better recruiters who can coach, you also need to get into your support staff, because if the rumors are true and your support staff led by your DM Derek Ray has fumbled the ball when it comes to the NIL and overpaying players that you didn't really want and not having a good eye on what the transfer portal looked like and you trusted his evaluation, man, you got to clean house. You got to clean the whole house, because you're right. We love Mike Norvell. We are big Mike Norvell fans. We want Mike Norvell to turn this around. Will it be turned out? Florida State fans, I'm telling you right now, this is coming from Michael Hinton, myself. I do not believe this gets turned around this year. We just go ahead and get used to, they may win one game. They may win one game. I don't see any other game on the schedule they win against North Carolina. I don't care how bad they are, against Florida, and they're down 20-0 to Texas A&M right now. That's what'd you call it? What'd you call that game, Jesse, earlier? You said it was going to be
the clown fight or whatever. The clown fight on Cartoon Network.
Network game. Yeah, the clown fight on Cartoon Network game. Even then, even those players still look better. They're still competing in some sense. I don't see maybe but 1 or 2 wins. Look, Florida State fans, just get used to it. This is not a recovery. We're not recovering.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go out and win 9 straight games. Okay. We're not making a bowl this year. It's over. It's done with. What you want to begin to see is, does Mike Norvell go to the youth movement? I was kind of hold off on it. I actually think now you got to start.
Yep.
You got to get Brock Glenn ready to go. You got to get those receivers ready to go. Pick 5 guys on the offensive line. Say, we're going to ride with them. Right. And I think on the defense as well, find your guys that you're going to ride with, who've given great effort, who are going to show up, who are going to make the tackles, who's going to be in the run flits, and just ride with them. And we'll take the season it is. We'll be upset every game they lose for sure. But you've got to get ready for next year. You got Alabama to open the season next year. You do not want to get dog walked in your own stadium against Alabama. So you got to get ready.
Yeah, and I think at this point, that's really the only thing you can salvage out of the season is losing with growth. And I would rather, and I know I speak for a majority of the fan base when I say we would rather lose while we grow for the future than lose with people who aren't even going to be here. And I think when you talk about cleaning house, I think you have to clean house in some positions in your locker room too. You can't have these guys who are squeezing you for NIL money, a $2 million defensive line that half of them threaten to enter the portal, that are playing like crap and giving half-ass effort this year. You just can't do it, man. If these people are going to be bad for the locker room, you got to get them out of here, because I think you do have some guys who are good for this locker room. I do think Juice Cryer is actually trying to be a leader in this locker room.
Yeah.
And I think like when you look at the big picture, long-term stuff, I think like I am genuinely concerned whether or not Mike Norvell can ever recover from this. Because you look at the way last season ended, you look at the way this season's going, you look at how terrible the high school recruiting. I mean, after the Javion Hilson decommitment, you're 34th in the country. And we laid out in that last episode. And again, I encourage you guys to go watch that episode where, like, if you want to be an elite program and you want to win games, you have to recruit at that top 10 to 15 level, right?
Yep.
And you're 34th right now, and that's before any more decommitment. So if he's ever going to recover from this, I think you have to appreciate you guys getting me to 23-4. I get that. You got me a nice extension. Hey, sweet. I'll mail you a Christmas card with some cash in it. But like, I think at some point you got to make changes, because I think really two things, right? You got to get better talent here, and this just ain't working. Like we said, if you can only win when you have a roster, and that goes for the offense too, because Jordan Travis is in the NFL too. Keon Coleman's in the NFL. Johnny Wilson's in the NFL. If you can only win with a roster stacked with NFL talent, and you can't consistently recruit NFL talent, then you got to figure out another process. But I think, man, the right now this program is becoming stale, right? And you are going to get. I mean, we talked about this before. You're getting out recruited by Florida, who's not really winning. You've been getting out recruited by Miami while you were going 13-0. They're not really winning, and now they are winning. So, like, again, man, you if you want to get, this is what we talked about in that one episode,
right?
Do you want to be loyal or do you want to be elite? And so you have to ask those questions now, because, man, this ain't like you just lost to LSU, to maybe the good LSU with Jaden Daniels and stuff like that. This ain't like you just lost to LSU. This isn't like you just lost to Clemson or Alabama or Georgia. You just lost to Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Memphis.
That's right.
Still have, like, Miami's going to beat you by 30, 40 points. Clemson's probably going to beat you by 30, 40 points.
Probably 60.
I mean, at this point, like, it's only going to get worse. And so, like, to me, like we talked about, man, I think really big picture as we get ready to kind of wrap this up is, like, you have to claw, fight, and scratch to the death this year to try and just find something that you can be that you can build for next year, because this season's a wash. It's over.
Yeah. Oh, it's done.
And I think now, if you do that, if you start with the youth movement, and to be fair, I don't know that you have to do that at every single position. Like, you can leave AZ on the field. You can leave Fentrell on the field.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain positions you can leave on the field. I think Toa Philly, 7.5 yards of carry. Now, granted, he had the inexcusable drop against Boston College, things like that. You can leave these guys in, but you at least got to start working in those young guys, because you need to keep them interested for next year.
That's right.
You need to keep them starting to get developed. But then at the end of the year, man, you have to clean house, because this just isn't working.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also fear that even if this is another fear of mine, even if you start those young guys, even if you start playing them a lot more to build for next year, just like what happened this year, man, the NIL price tag is going to go up on those players, because they're, like you said, they're probably already teams. Their GM, their player development off. They're already reaching out to your cousins, grandmas, uncles, left knee doctor, and trying to get into that. And so they're going to, I imagine Charles Lester's probably getting calls already like, hey, bro, we'll throw this at you if you come here next year. Right. And so he's going to come back to Florida State and say, hey, look, I'd like to be here, but man, they're throwing this at me. Right. Florida State is in this paradigm because, again, and I didn't say this earlier, I've been trying to hold off on this a little bit, but man, Jesse, I really think, I hate to blame this on this, but I really think the snub broke this program. Yeah. And I think that because of the snub, because of the perception of your program nationally now, also you started 0-3. I really think that these players feel like, well, if I'm going to play at Florida State, man, I'm going to try to get as much money as I can. And they're going to be desperate. So yeah, they're going to pay me this money. And that's what happened this year, according to the rumors on that we're reading about, that Florida State overplayed for some of these players that weren't even good enough. And $2 million for a defensive line that honestly should have went in the portal. Like,
right.
The way
No,
playing.
You're right. You're right.
And so I would just say, like you said, this year, at the end of the day, the season by all technical means is over. You're basically fighting for bowl eligibility now, where you got to win 6 games. Probably not going to happen.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So really, it's all about development. You got to take it one game at a time. You try to get these young players in, try to see what you have, see where you got to go recruit. And honestly, it's not like you're going to fire this coaching staff and program development staff and all like that during the season. So, you try to get Mike Norvell, you got to get in front of as many recruits as you possibly can to say, look, I'm going to correct this. These coaches that you're here, that you see now, they won't be here next year. You just got to tell those players. And I know that's scary. And I know they might well, then I'm gonna go somewhere else. Okay, that's fine. Like, you have to hit the reset button. You have to. And what that also probably means for us, Florida State fans, is 2025 might be a struggle again, just because if you're hitting the reset button, you're basically punting on this season and basically almost next season to try to get better, unless you can go out and identify, because you're going to need a lot of transfers to correct this ship.
You are.
And if those young guys don't pan out as many, because the hit and bust rate going into this year was really great for the transfer portal, but man, Mike's bust rate, I mean, it was like 90 something. I think we had in the offseason. That's going to take a massive hit. And so I think you just got to be with those recruits, Norvell. You've got to be honest with them. You got to tell them the things you're going to get ready to do and hope that they buy into that. And then for the rest of the season, man, you've got to pour and you got to coach. I wouldn't even worry about necessarily, as much game planning. Just, man, every week should be preseason
fundamentals, right? Fundamentals,
tackling, like, how to read a run fit, how to read a line, how to, what happens, how do you communicate? And if they don't communicate, punish them. This is football still. You can punish them when they don't communicate. They should be running stadium steps, man. That's what I did when I was in high school, man. I ran stadium steps.
Right. And if they don't want to be punished and they don't take the punishment, get them off of the roster. You got young guys, right? You have young guys that you can play. And again, like, you may get involved in more blowouts if you're playing a bunch of young guys, but you're still losing games. It doesn't matter if you lose by 1 or by 30. And I think you're right, man. I do think the snub, I think the Orange Bowl, and I think going 0-3 has broke this program, and you have to fix it. And I think there are culture problems here too. Like, I'm not in the locker room to know that, but I mean, if you think that, take Jared Verse, for example. Like, Jared Verse probably got a lot of money to come back to this program, but you didn't see a lot of the driving Lamborghini trucks, wearing a lot of the flashy jewelry at ACC media days and stuff like that. Like, you didn't see a lot of that stuff from this program last year like you do this year. You didn't see a lack of effort from that team last year. Something is broken within this program. Something is broken from a culture standpoint. And that's why I feel like, again, at the end of the year, you have to start over, man. You just got to, because right now you got some problems and it's not going to fix itself.
Yeah.
My biggest fear as we get ready to get out of here, my biggest fear, though, is, and this is something that you see with coaches, and we saw that in today's game, that you would not give anybody else another look, is the stubbornness. The changes will not be made. And then I think in the long run, Mike Norvell, you're probably not listening to this, but if you are, I think the stubbornness will end up costing him his job. Like, if you don't go youth movement, and say it's not right now, like, say you keep trying. If you're 0-6 at the backside of that Clemson bye week and you don't go youth movement and you don't fire at least 5 or 6 assistants in this offseason, it's going to end up costing him his job. I don't think he's ever going to recover from this.
I agree.
I don't want to say that he can't recover from this, right? I don't want to say that, because I think he can. I think, like we said, I think he's a relatively good coach. He's been down as offensive coordinator for the first 3 games. I get it. That's a tough hill to climb. But, like, man, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and then giving us coach speak every week, because honestly, right now, the fan base doesn't really care, man. They don't care what you got to say. They're not receptive to anything. And I don't know how much this team is receptive to it either. So, like, it's a frustrating place to be, man. It's hard to even fathom how we ended up last year to this year, how we fell off so hard, because we were talking about this before the show. I don't know that I remember a program, and we've talked about it before with, like, Cam Newton falling off. Once Cam Newton left Auburn, they fell from like 14 and whatever to 3-9. This is a collapse of epic proportions. Yeah. And so it's going to be a long year, guys. Buckle up. I mean, look, hey, I'm not like we're excited to be sitting here talking about this team every week, but we're still going to be here. So, make sure you check in with us and make sure we're still okay. If we don't upload for a week, send us a message, make sure we're doing all right. But, man, it's going to be tough, man, because this was, like I said, and then we'll wrap this up. I thought this was the one opportunity coming off a bye week at home against a G5 team. If you could have won this game, I don't care if it was by 1 point. If you'd have came back and you'd have won this game 21-20, I think that would have been enough positivity to, like, okay, maybe. But I think now, man, I think it's over. Like, I hate to be super, super negative, pessimistic like that. There's just not much to be positive about. There's really not.
There's not. And just to put icing on the cake here, I just sent this to you, Jesse. There was a tweet sent out basically talking about how FSU's best players have been in the club every week in the club. The club. This is from a credible source.
Yeah,
in
and
the club.
I actually heard some rumors about them being out in Ireland at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, the night before the game, in Ireland, partying with fans and whatnot. And so that's what I'm getting back to, man. Like, I'm not in the locker room. I'm not around Tallahassee, so I can't
Correct.
necessarily say some of these things. But man, I think you got a culture problem right now. I
Yeah.
think you got guys that care more. Again, like I said, you got guys that care more about the name on the back of their jersey. And frankly, guess what? There are absolute. I hope that NIL money's good, man. I hope you invested wisely because your NFL stock is tanked. You are not getting drafted.
Yep.
I think you got culture problems, and I don't think they're even receptive to the coaching right now. And so that's
Yeah.
why I think the young guys, I think you can at least mold them. They're still moldable. And hey, we've
Yeah.
heard that 247 report even said that you got backups that are making six figures on this roster. And so like it's NIL is maybe ruining the sport, but this isn't happening at other programs.
No,
It's just not.
It's happening at Florida State, but it's not happening anywhere else. Why?
Right. And that's
Good
the
question.
question. That's the question that one guy gets paid $10 million a year to answer, and that guy
That's
ain't on
right.
the show. So with
That's
that
right.
being said, guys, look, man, it's bad. Like there's no way around it. This is terrible. This team is probably going to win 0 to 3 games at best. And so like we hate to be super negative like this, but after today, man,
Got to call it like it is.
you got to call it like it is. And we tried. We dang sure
did.
tried
We
after that
did.
bye week. With that bye week, gave me a fresh perspective, but man, it still sucks. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, guys, we appreciate you guys watching. We're going to be suffering through it, so maybe just come suffer through it
Yeah.
with us because we're Florida State fans, so we're going to still be watching. But man, just buckle up because it's going to be a longer season than it already has. So with that being said, man, I guess we're just going to wrap this up. I don't even know that I want to say go Noles. I want to say go drink. Go drink something or do something. Go eat some good food.
No.
Eat a tub of ice cream to bury your emotions or something like that. Or
Yes.
pour you a strong drink because it's gonna be
Yeah.
a long season, man. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Yeah, so hey, it's I hate it, man. It sucks.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you. You look at last year, man. Like we always talk about this, and we talked about this with 2013 too. Like enjoy the wins, man,
That's right.
because you never know. I when I sat in the Rose Bowl in 2014, I know you were there too.
Yep.
I never thought that a couple years later I'd be sitting there watching us lose on a Hail Mary to Jacksonville State. I never thought after last year, and I said multiple times, I thought the losing seasons were done. I thought maybe we're not playoffs, but the losing seasons were done. I never thought we would be back here. So cherish the good moments, man, because this is going to be a painful season. And like you said, I don't know that next year is going to be incredibly better. Like you might be a bowl team next year. So man, it's tough. You got tougher teams coming. You've lost to some of the worst teams on your schedule. You got tougher teams coming. So with that being said, guys, love y'all, mean it. Sorry, but it's bad. As you can see behind Michael, there's a full-on dumpster fire going on in Tallahassee right now. So someone pull the fire alarm. So well, actually, it's already been pulled.
They already pulled it.
It got pulled in the press conference. So yeah, man, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Like I said, we're still going to be here to talk about it. So yeah, until next one, I just don't have any answers for you guys. I just really don't. So hope ain't a strategy.
Always.
Yeah, hope ain't a strategy. And right now, I don't have much hope. So we'll catch you on the next one. Until we still love this team. Look, we're still Florida State fans. We still love this team. We might be mad at them, but we still love. Well, we love this program, Michael. I don't know that I love this
program. I don't love this team.
Last year was a very lovable team. The personalities and everything. This year doesn't even feel like it has a lot of those personalities. So with that being said, guys, we still love the program. So as always, go Noles. Maybe not these Noles, but go Noles.